Welcome to Fashion Designers Get Paid, a podcast for burnt out fashion designers who want to ditch the toxic rat race, say bye-bye to backstabbing bosses, and work with brands who value and respect them. I'm your host, Heidi, and I believe that you can do things differently in your fashion career. Because the truth is, most industry jobs will underpay and overwork you, and having your own brand is far from profitable. Let's also be honest, most of them fail. So if you actually want to, be a fashion designer and get paid, the best way to do it is as a freelancer. Now, maybe you've been told that brands don't accept remote freelancers, or that freelancing means being an exploited temp employee working full-time without benefits. Or to work freelance, you have to be a rock star expert with all the skills from design through development. I'm going to show you that it is possible to be a real freelancer in fashion, work remotely with brands you love, and make money, even if you're terrified you don't have all the answers. You got this, and I'm here to help you do it. In this episode, I'm chatting with Mari Medina, a freelance knitwear designer who, in the span of 3 years, moved out of New York City after she had lived and worked there for 14 years, and she had a baby. These were two things that she never imagined being possible when she worked for a fashion brand in-house. When Mari was living in New York City, she didn't think that she could be a freelance fashion designer because she didn't have all the skills or all the experience. Her fashion industry job had been for a big corporation in design, and she was terrified she didn't have all the answers about sourcing and production and the entire development process. Turns out Mari didn't need all of the skills because after getting her first few clients, she realized that it was okay to get started, even though she didn't know everything. Mari was able to learn as she went. And beyond that, she realized that a lot of her self-doubt was a strong voice in her head saying she wasn't capable. She realized that she knew a lot more than she thought, which I would argue is the case for most of us. Mari talks us through the strategies that she's used to build and grow her career as a freelance fashion designer. She's only working half-time because she takes care of her 2-year-old daughter, but she is still averaging $5,000 a month. If you do the math, that is $60,000 a year working half-time. Mari has full-time childcare lined up starting next month, and I know she's going to hit 6 figures soon. You're going to love this episode. Let's get to it. Mari, welcome. I feel like this conversation is long overdue. We'll get into that. But first, please introduce yourself to everybody. Let us know who you are and what you do in fashion.
Yeah, I am a knitwear designer. My little studio is called Knitwear, and I've been working for the past 3 years for over, I think, I've serviced more than 11 clients at this point.
That's amazing.
And I do from the design aspect, sourcing, the material, the manufacturing, for mostly slow fashion brands. So it's a lot of low MOQ, natural yarns. And I've worked from, machine knitting to hand knitting, crochet, and connecting my clients to artisans in different parts of the world.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna drop a quote that you said to me a long time ago that has really stuck with me, and I'd love to just kind of start the conversation there. Many years ago, I think right after you had gotten your freelancing career kick-started, I don't remember the timing of when you had joined Fast and all that stuff happened, but you were gaining some traction and getting some clients and doing work, and you said to me, I thought freelancing was only for these expert rock stars of the fashion world. And you didn't feel like you were, I don't remember exactly what I just remember you said expert rock stars. And you didn't feel like you were there yet, but then you were. So can you take us way back to that beginning time?
Yeah. I think when you work in a corporate setting, you have a certain title and a certain role, and it's good, but I think it takes years to get to a point where you feel like, oh, well, now that I am not an assistant designer, now I'm an associate designer. And you identify with that role, right? And it kind of keeps you, it's hard to learn. I mean, you're thrown into the fire, you learn, but it depends on the atmosphere, if it's a slower pace or fast pace. So I didn't have where I was in my career. I had been years working. I think I worked in, companies for 7 years. So it was a while.
Yeah. And this was in New York City.
That was in New York. And I had great mentors and coworkers, but you only have access to a certain part of the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I wanted to learn more, like something like simple as like specs. That was in my goals, when you have like for the year. But it was so like, we were so busy with things that I never like was able to be like, how do I learn this,
Yeah.
And I felt like I was trying to, but because I was like slower in like learning that aspect, or like, you don't have the confidence to just kind of throw yourself in there. At least I
Yeah.
didn't have it. So I was more like, okay, I can do this little part really well, but I don't have contacts. I don't have just kind of the resources, the network to take a brand from the beginning to the end. Because I don't think I had even done it myself in
Yeah.
a work setting. So that's why I thought, like, if you've been, for example, like a director in a company, you've seen the whole process, you've had the experience, so then you have the credibility for yourself, and for your clients to be like, I've done all of this for X
Mm-hmm.
amount of years, and I've learned because a lot of this can't really like you don't really learn it in school. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, you just are learning in the process, like grading and things like that. Like one of my mentors said, like grading is an art. So I was like, well, I'm not going to learn it. So like I'm doomed.
Yeah.
And so it was like mostly things like that, like if I haven't seen it per se, like how am I going to throw myself into a situation where I'm going to tell people that I can do this.
In
Um,
your focus, like your role during those 7 years working in the industry was more the design component. Is that right?
Exactly. So, and I work with technical designers, I work production, I work merchandising. And so it was like, and I wasn't even in a lot of these meetings because I was mostly in the production part of it. Not production, but like producing,
Yeah.
design. Like while my boss was in the meeting for like marketing or production or pricing, I was in
Yeah.
there like cranking sketches, cranking tech packs.
Yeah.
So we can keep the process moving along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where you were at in your head, despite having 7 years of experience, which is a good bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But so then what was the moment that you were like, wait, maybe I can do this? Do you remember?
It happened gradually, and sometimes I still doubt it. It was mostly like the first client that I got, they didn't need those services from me. That's like the simple like part. They
Mm,
already, for example, like when I first started working with them, they already had the yarn that they wanted to use. They already had the factory that they were using,
yeah.
and they mostly just needed me for the part that I already knew how to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
design and the tech pack,
Yeah.
and for the measurements that I wasn't super like familiar with, I just kind of used my own specs, like with sweaters I already had, and
Yeah.
sweaters. Like I also printed out like a lot of the specs that I had done at work,
Yeah.
and then you have like the graded
Like
spec,
a
and then you
base. Yeah.
have the picture of the fitting, and I started making a binder for myself
Yeah.
for these tech packs and measurements. I still use this binder. Now this is like fat binder that I have
Yeah.
for,
Look at that resource.
yeah, all my clients from my own clients, and just kind of making myself a library.
Yeah.
So from that time, I only had a few of them, and now I have a bunch.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. And then like it was slow. It was slow. I had people that had done the second client had done already a little bit of research, and she's like, I already have this factory in New York that I want to work with. I was like, oh cool, yeah, I've kind of heard of them, seen them on Instagram. Then I started using that factory, and then kind of that's you just kind of start little by little,
Yeah.
getting to learn and finding the places where you can find those people and
Yeah.
resources and the materials and the yarn. Like I asked a former coworker if she knew like, Italian yarns or whatever, or a specific material. I think I was asking her.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at all these people. She gave me a few emails, and it was just kind of like a starting point, and then I
Yeah.
built it up from there.
But the
Yeah.
point here, I think, of this story, which is great, is that like you don't have to have all the skills to start. Like you can start with one
Yeah.
component, right? And then, like you said, oh, they already had this. And then you start learning almost through like, not almost, but actually like through your clients' resources, you start learning, right? Now, okay, they have this
Yeah.
factory in New York. You're like, great, let's work with them. And then you learn like how they work, the pros and cons, and
Right.
you just grows.
It just grows from there. And now I've learned, I'm like, everyone's just figuring it out. I mean,
Yeah.
um, from just kind of other professionals that I've been following recently, just kind of listening to podcasts and getting inspired that way. Everyone's just figuring it out.
They
And,
are.
you know, and I am too, you know, that
Yeah.
I can't say that I know the perfect amount of everything at this point, you know.
Yeah.
But I think I've already, you know, your mind sometimes needs evidence. So I feel like little by little, I built myself evidence of like I've been able to do this. So, you
Yeah.
know, you keep like gaining that confidence, you know.
To sort of like validate your knowledge and like your
Yeah.
ability to do the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. I've never heard anybody put it as like evidence, but you're totally right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And I think like we try to find evidence from the opposite way all the time. It's
Like,
like
what do you mean?
it's like like I haven't been able to do this because I never did it in my company. You know, that's
Oh,
evidence from
evidence
the opposite.
against being
Again,
able to
yes,
do it, right?
exactly.
Versus evidence
Right.
that supports you. Oh,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And I would argue that
So,
like women are like 100 times worse at that than men typically.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a friend tell me like men apply to jobs that they're underqualified all the time, like whatever, you know?
Yeah. There's something in like our DNA, our hormonal balance or something that like we don't typically make those
Yeah,
leaps like men
yeah,
do.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
You're
yeah,
conscious of it though now, which is great. And I think even as valuable of being conscious of the negative evidence you're constantly, not just you, but like we, right? As people are constantly putting on ourselves of like, oh, you can't do it because, right? You're always gonna make an excuse why you can't.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So
Yeah.
I think it's just for me, it's been a gradual process. Like I'm in a drastically different place that I was 3 years ago when I
Yeah.
started this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I started this, I was saying a lot like, well, I won't pitch because we're in the middle of a pandemic, or like, and then the next year was, I won't pitch because I'm pregnant and I have no idea what this is going to look like, you know?
Always an
And
excuse.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, there's always an excuse. And I haven't been the type of person that has pitched a lot. A lot of my clients kind of have found me. But now I'm in the place where I'm like, I don't pitch because I don't have time. But it's something that you kind of have to, you know, it's like all these different places that I've been at throughout these years.
Yeah.
It's cool to kind of think back to it.
Yeah. And see the evolution and the progress that you've made for sure.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, but that's right. You told me once, you said, I think it was almost a year doing research on brands that I could
Yeah.
pitch to
Yeah, because
because,
I was still
yeah.
working my full-time
Okay.
job and I was very slow, I remember. And I went, like, I think I listened to in a podcast that you said, like, to look at trade shows. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like, I've never even thought about this. These are
Yeah.
small brands.
Yeah.
And being in New York, I was always familiar with big brands, but I
Yeah.
didn't know that, like, all like the two tiers down, like there's a bunch of
A
them,
billion. Yeah.
a billion of them all over
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
So then I went into those rabbit holes because I was bored at work. and and looking at clothes does look like you're doing work, you know, because
Yeah.
we were just really slow. And so I went to those rabbit holes and I was like starting to write down the name of the founders
Yeah.
and the name of the company, the website, trying to find emails. So I was kind of writing all of that down, but I didn't even have like a portfolio or a website or anything like that. I was just kind of doing research to see like, is this even possible? Like how many people are there out there?
So that took you spent a lot of time doing
Yeah.
that.
I spent a long time doing that. And I haven't actually, I still have that list. I have like a bunch of brands,
You haven't even reached out
in
to.
there. I reached out to a few of them, but I haven't actually reached out to like all of them or anything like that. It was just, I don't know. I think it was trying to find that evidence of like, there are a lot of small brands from real people that are not corporations that are,
Mm-hmm.
because I work in a big corporation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to try to find a founder for the corporation that I was working at, I would have found someone that would have not even have access to design.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's not even, you can't even relate to that person.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just really interesting for me to start learning about that, because I think that's what inspired me. And people that I was like, oh, this is the story of this person, how they founded their company and stuff. So I think it was just like getting inspired, I guess, while I didn't have the courage to start anything.
I think it's a really interesting point to bring up, because a lot of people working in fashion obviously are in New York City or LA or London, like these big fashion hubs, right? And it's very easy to sort of like think of the industry as like that, these huge corporations, right? But arguably there's just as much, if not more, happening like 2 tiers down, like you said. It's just these small independent people, and they're making really amazing stuff, and they need help too, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not accessible to do like the true remote freelancing thing for these big brands. It's not.
No,
I mean,
they're not looking for that.
I've heard some random like fluke stories, but typically it's not. So just even like being inspired and understanding and knowing that all those brands are out there is huge.
You also don't want to do that, because you're going to be like, there's going to be a bunch of people in the office, and you're going to be like the odd person out, unless like that whole corporation works like remote, which doesn't actually,
doesn't happen.
Exist.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Fashion. You don't want to be like the odd person out in a computer in like a fitting or something like that, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you get your first few clients?
So when I was doing the market research, I had a friend of a friend that had told me, hey, I have a friend that has a brand, a knitwear brand. And she told me this like probably like a year before or two before I started freelancing. But I was like, oh, why would I even talk to this person? They sound really cool, but what do I even have to offer? Like kind of mentality of like,
interesting.
I should have just like said, you're cool, let's be friends. Like, I don't know. I had this like mentality of like, why would I even be friends with this person? Like, I don't have anything to like talk to her about or whatever. But
that negative evidence.
It's that negative thing. It's like, just throw yourself out there. Like, just be friends with people. Like, it doesn't matter. Everyone's just always thinking about themselves anyway. Like, just like
totally.
When I thought about that, so I reached out to her again, and she connected us, and because I wanted to do market research basically. And because of that, she's like, oh, actually, like this is a very interesting time, because we are looking to work with someone that is they're European brand. So they had worked with people there in their country, but they hadn't worked with anyone that was specialized in knitwear. And they thought it was so interesting that I was. And I had that experience. So they're like, oh, can you do an audit? And I think I did that for free. And they thought it was really cool the way that I like noticed like fit issues and stitch issues and things like the stitch is weighing on this side of the body, and that's why it looks like that. And they were like, wow, we noticed those things too, but we didn't really know quite how to fix them. So yeah, I mean, that's how I started with my first client, and I just did one sweater, one design for them. And then a few months later they were like, let's do more. And that was all in 2020. And then my second client found me through the web. I have no idea, just like, I don't know if it was LinkedIn. I don't know. I don't think it was LinkedIn. It just found me. She said it was really hard to find people, like knitwear designers. And my website was clear, and she had already seen the work that I had launched with that one brand. And so then I felt comfortable, like even taking on a new client. And that's how it started. And from sharing on Instagram, like someone that I had worked with, like I was their intern, and then she started her own brand, and then she asked me if I was doing knits. So that was like my third client. It has been more like organic rather than pitching. I did pitch one time for a brand in LA, but because they were a little bit bigger, I was kind of that person in the computer in the fitting.
Okay. This is a firsthand experience. Okay. Cause I was like, that's an interesting perspective that I wouldn't have really like thought about, but I guess you're right. Okay. You were that person. Tell me about that.
Yeah, they're still a small brand and they wanted to make knits, but they also didn't have they only had one designer and
Okay.
one founder and a few other people, and they had like a store, super cute brand. And I had bought stuff myself. So I was like, hey, you're super cool. Like, let's work together. And they're like, yeah, we're actually kind of like looking, we have this idea, but we didn't know, like, we kind of contacted this factory, but I don't know how to work this. And so that's where I stepped in and helped them. And it didn't end up working out, but it was a good experience regardless. We were able to produce knits here in the US, which was really cool experience.
Yeah.
But I was that person on the computer. Like we had a fitting and I think there were like 4 people there. And
Did you go out to LA for that?
no,
Oh,
no. It was like they weren't big enough to like even like fly me in like that or like,
okay.
I never even saw the samples in person.
Okay. So this was all remote in like Zoom or
This was
something.
it was all remote. But I think the fact that they were a little bit bigger made me feel like I was a bit like out of place, because I wasn't there.
You were the only
And
person not there.
I was the only person not there, and
Okay.
I'm sure it could be fine, actually. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's fine. But in
Yeah.
my experience, I was just kind of like, oh, I
It
don't
didn't feel
know.
good.
Yeah, it just maybe like it was the day or whatever,
Yeah.
and there were some miscommunication. I think, yeah, I'm sure there were so many things that I could have done better, like that. And at the end of that project, I actually like did meet with the founder and was like, hey, like, give me some feedback because we were gonna start another season, and she was like, oh, we just hired a designer that has both experiences, so like
Mm,
wovens and knit. So we won't need you anymore. And I just met up with her for some feedback and stuff, and I think we had some issues with the production aspect of it getting really delayed. Factories, I just don't, like, you need to be really, really, really on top of them,
yeah.
and I still like haven't learned that, like now I know. I'm like, you need to email them like every few days to
Yeah.
like follow up. Some
Yeah.
factories you don't need to do that, but
Yeah.
if you're working with local factories, you kind of really need to.
Yeah.
And I was not, I had not learned that part of the process, and some things fell through the crack. And yeah, I think it was they did have a production person, so I think I assumed it's a lot of assuming from my part too. It's like, oh, she's gonna handle that part,
Mm,
and she was not handling it, and she didn't
mm,
understand a lot of the technicalities. Like to do a PO for sweaters is different to do a PO for wovens. Like
hmm.
I like to always add the yarn and specify like the stock color, and you have to put the sizing, and you do that for both, but they didn't even have that concept. So the factory was
Okay.
confused, the production person was confused, and I thought that wasn't my job. So I
Yeah.
think I was also a little bit hands off in that
Yeah.
side. I was like, I never said that. This was never on my invoice. This was never on my proposal.
Yeah. To
So
do
it
the
was also
production.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was also that part of like, I never said that I was an expert in this. This was never part of my invoice or proposal, yet they still were expecting me to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of learning from my side,
Sure.
communication.
Sure.
Where does,
Communication.
yeah, where does it end? Like, there needs to be an end to the
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
And I had not learned that yet.
So did that inspire changes going forward of how you put together your proposals or your contracts or your invoices of being like, there's a hard stop sort of like once we pass like first proto or I don't know, like what, right? What did that
Yeah.
look like? How'd you resolve that?
Yeah, I started adding production to
Okay.
my invoices, and I saw kind of how this person worked, and I was like, if I think I can do a better job than her, then I can actually handle this,
Yeah.
like in a way where I was like, I didn't even know what charts people were using for production. And I think it was like even just like seeing their process of like what chart they were using and how I would make it better for sweaters. I just made my own chart for like POs and for yarn orders. I was already doing the yarn orders part of it, but kind of adding all of that into the templates that I was using and knowing how to kind of calculate the yarn and stuff like that. From one of the other factories, they're like, some factories like do certain parts of the process and some don't. So then some factories want nothing to do with the material order, right? So then they'll tell you how to do it. So they're like, hey, like for yarn, it's like about weight. So this sweater weight this much, so add 20% to the yarn order. So then I would do it. So it's just, yeah, it's kind of, there's so many details that like explaining how I ended up like learning all of it, like feels blurry right now.
Totally. But the point, I mean, I think the bigger picture point here is like you did a couple things really great. Like you had that project with that client in LA and it like went okay, but like you said, some things fell through the crack and you learned that because you went to the founder and you said like, I'd love to get some feedback.
Yes.
Like, where could I do better? And most people and freelancers, but I think most people in general don't proactively like ask for feedback after or even during a project, right? And so you learned that, then it was able to allow you to say, okay, great, now I need to adjust this going forward in my invoicing. I need to add for this. And also it instigated you to like learn that whole part of the process through various channels, right? Like through maybe what you had seen in that interaction with that client or like what you're getting from factories and stuff. Like, again, you were proactive to get the feedback. Then you implemented a system for you to learn that going forward. You didn't have to start with that skill.
Yeah. So, and it also helped me learn about the big need from my clients, like what they really need, even if they don't express it. Like some people try to kind of take the invoice and they're like, this is too much, so let me take this part and this part and this part. There's some parts that you just really can't take off. So I think that's kind of what I learned from it. Even though production is not my favorite part of the process, it's a huge need for my clients, you know, for my clients right now. And I don't do production for all my clients. They don't need it, but when they do need it, they really need it. And so I think it's like I'm most of the time included. And now I've done two things where I haven't proposals that I haven't included it, but it's very clear. It's like development, and it ends at when the final sample is approved, and then and
done.
And it's done, and I'm just so much more. I just understand it so much more now, and know when things are gonna just stop. And I'm like, I'm not afraid of saying, okay, from now on, it's on you, and all of this, like, make sure you have sometimes for like export and all of that, make sure you know how to handle those things, because that's not part of my expertise.
And I think a lot of that, it's like I compare so many things in freelancing to like learning how to sew. Like you can read all the books and you can watch all the YouTube videos on like how to manage the project and how to do the pricing and how to, what have you. But like at the end of the day, some parts of it, you're just like, okay, this fabric needs a different thread, needs a different tension. Like you just have to start like putting stuff through the machine, right? And like learn it firsthand, because there's so many different nuances. Like you said, like for your clients who are a very specific type of client, right? They're the small knits. You said, I think a lot of it's done like stateside or local production, what have you. Like they have very different problems and needs than like a more established brand versus like a big corporation, right? So like understanding the nuances, which you kind of learn by getting in there, getting your hands wet, and then asking for the feedback, right? So you can keep learning.
No, it's such a process. I mean, I have loved it, and I love having my own business. I've learned to love it. I think sometimes I wish that I was still in like a more established like place, but now,
why is that?
I can't, I can't remember why, but I remember feeling that way.
Sure.
I think it's such a huge learning curve. So I think you just go through really high and really low.
Totally.
Like just like even conversation, like waiting for like a conversation about an invoice, and like, oh my gosh, what is my client gonna say? And then nothing happens, there's not a big deal, and like, sure, I'll pay that, whatever. But it's just like all those things. And I think now I'm trying to say it as like, there's constant learning and growing, and that's very exciting. And I would rather be there than in a place where I have to wait for someone to give me a promotion, or wait for someone to kind of like you almost like get a permission from someone to like, hey, I want to learn this. I feel like having your own business, like the sky is the limit. Like you kind of have control over like, if I want more clients, I'm gonna hustle, you know, like maybe I'll work like at night, or like if I don't have time to the day to get more clients, to like make my website more clear. There's so many things that you have control of. And I think that's very exciting to be able to do that, you know.
So can we talk about that a little bit more? Because you have like a lot's happened on your journey to freelancing. So you started like you were still in your job, researching all these brands on the side. Fast forward 3 years, you now live in Nashville, Tennessee. You have a baby. Oh gosh, she's what, 2? She's a toddler
She's
now.
Almost 2. Yeah.
Okay, almost 2. Collie, right? Okay. If we rewind back, like you and I had a chat or an email once, and I think this was before you were pregnant, and you were like, I'm thinking about, I think I had just given birth or something, right? And you were like, we're gonna get pregnant, and we're figuring this out. And you were like, I cannot imagine thinking about getting pregnant and having a baby if I was still like in that corporate full-time environment, like the freedom and the control you had over your life and your working hours and stuff as a freelancer, like felt so much better going into parenthood, motherhood, like that. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about like,
oh my God.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a big journey. 3 years, right? Like you live in a very non-fashion hub now, and you've got a toddler. Like
I've went through a vortex the past 3 years. I'm
multiple
like a different
vortexes.
person. Exactly. It's like a different life. Oh, what a journey. I still can't imagine like actually being pregnant in that scenario. For my first trimester, like I feel like I slept all the way through like March 2021. And in between I would get up and like do the work that I needed to do. 5 minutes before, well, maybe 15 minutes before this call, I put my toddler for a nap. You know, I laid with her in bed so she could fall asleep. It's just such a different life, and I couldn't have imagined it. I think I was wishing for something like this, but I didn't know how to do it. You know, I always think about like certain thoughts that I had before, and I'm like, I have that now. You know, like when I graduated from college and stuff, and I started working, it took me a long time to adjust to like going to the same place every day. I like didn't like that part of working. And just having that kind of the same schedule. You know, when you're in school, like Wednesdays look a certain way, you get excited about Wednesdays or Fridays, or like days have different feels, and I love that about it. And then having that kind of very set routine where you like do the same thing every day took me like, I could say like maybe like a year to get used to. So I don't know, that's just kind of the way that I've always been. Like I had certain, like I've had in the past, I always liked, you know, on Fridays I get a dessert from this place, or like Fridays feel this way. I don't know, like I've always had this thing. So fast forward to now, I have that. I mean, you know, I'm trying to find you just have different rhythms. Like I have a rhythm, I have more of a schedule, I have a baby now, but it's just such a different life that I just couldn't have even imagined. Even moving out of New York, I didn't want to move out of New York, but I did have times in the past where I felt trapped there because I'm like,
you've commented that to me before.
I'm moving out of New York this time felt different because it felt a lot more like financial, but which a lot of people are moving out of big cities. But back then, I forgot that back then I was like, I'm stuck here, you know, because I need a job and I love actually what I do. The concept of what I do, I love. But would I move out to California? That California is too far from the Caribbean, which where my family is at.
Yeah, you're from Puerto Rico. I don't think we've brought that up, but yeah, you're from Puerto Rico. A lot of your family's still there. Yeah,
so my family's there. So you know, New York, Puerto Rico, very connected. You know, super easy to get there. So moving to the West Coast was never an option for me. But that was like another. It's the same thing. You know, you're kind of stuck in between two. You kind of are going there. Just it's gonna be different than New York, but it's kind of not having that option. Like, I guess not having the option to choose a place because of the type of work that you do. Where if you're a nurse, you can work anywhere, like anywhere.
Or if you're a
And
freelancer, you can.
yeah, exactly.
I gotta throw that out. Come on.
Yeah.
A nurse, that was out of left field, but totally, I get it. There's jobs
Well,
everywhere. Yeah.
I
Fashion is not that
like
way.
I think that what I was trying to doing an analogy of like where my mind was back then, like where I
Ah,
point.
okay. When you were
I
like,
didn't know anything about
you still felt
freelancing,
stuck in house. Okay.
how I was, yeah, stuff. But I think now, like, just the huge amount of learning that I've done in my freelance career, my business, even now I call it a lot more my business than I do call myself a freelancer,
Yeah,
because
that's
I think
interesting.
it gives me more power.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing itself as a business,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot less kind of emotion attached to that, but it's more
Mm,
like businesses grow and businesses do good as well.
yeah.
But business doesn't just include me, but I can hire other freelancers to work with
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and that's definitely my vision, to have like a mini like knitwear studio.
Yeah.
And I've already started working with two freelancers from Fast,
Yeah.
and that has been
Kate,
really awesome.
is it Kate Knight?
Well, no, but yes, but she's
Okay.
we're
I mean, I
good
know you guys
friends.
have become buds. Yeah.
And that's also a part of it, is kind of having friends that are in your field, and we share so many resources, and that's just, it's really good to be in a place where you share ideas and there's always kind of growth. And I'm excited to see where, even I'll be in a year, I'll be in 2 years.
Totally.
So I think that's so exciting, and
Yeah.
even moving here, we moved to Nashville, and we have like an office right now where we can work. So it feels
Yeah.
more like everything starts to feel a little bit more official in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
So, this is real. It also, like, moving here also was like, okay, going back to a full-time job is not an option. I have to really make this work.
Yeah.
So there's a part of that too. But
A little
I mean, I
pressure is
wouldn't,
always good.
a little pressure, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you haven't needed to go back for 3 years, so it's going to be fine. You're smart enough to keep figuring
yeah,
this out, keep making
yeah,
it work. Yeah,
yeah.
you mentioned earlier before we hit record that Collie, your 2-year-old daughter, is you got a babysitter right now, some hours, so you're working about half capacity, like half time, part time.
Yep.
And then in about a month, she's going into like a more structured official daycare, so you'll have more time to like build your business out more and create that studio.
I'm so excited, and I
Yeah.
think this month I'm like gearing up to be like, okay, what are my packages? I'm
Yeah.
changing up from kind of like the invoice structure that I used to do, that I used to itemize everything,
Yeah.
to package pricing.
Okay.
And I think that's gonna help a lot, just because it doesn't give the client like the option to be like, let me take this one little thing
I
out,
don't want to pay $1,000 for this.
Exactly.
You're like,
Exactly.
you order the whole entree. You don't get to like take out the side salad or
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Do not take out the cilantro,
Yeah.
like, it's like,
It's not Chipotle here. We're not building our own
yes.
burrito.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's kind of how I've been working in the past. And some people are like, well, this part is already done. So
They
can
get
I
like really
like reduce
nitpicky.
it? Like,
Yeah.
you think it's done, but it's not, And and I've also had situations where like, well, maybe like this and that, and I was like, sure, I'll do that, and then it's not taking the same amount of effort and
I see.
time. So
It
I think
becomes a
it's like,
wash.
yeah, I'm not going to just tell them like, this is 100, this is 500 anymore, and it's more like a package pricing,
Totally.
because I've been spending a lot of time on proposals,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been taking a chunk of my time. Like, if I
Mm-hmm.
had three potential clients that I'm working with right now, and it took me like an hour to do each proposal, because I was going in depth and I was
So
explaining
customized.
everything.
Yeah.
It was so customized, and I just cannot do that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I say that I don't have time to like promote my business on Instagram or social media, but I'm spending all this time and doing this, So anyway, I just changed it just literally last week.
Yeah.
And it was a lot easier to just like, okay, this is it,
That's
And
exciting to go
yeah,
to a
yeah,
packet. I mean, I think it's definitely something more advanced. Like it'd be really hard to start there, right? You just don't understand all
yes,
the nuances,
yes.
but it's very exciting because I know a lot of our students have package type of systems and it's great. It's definitely something you can grow into. So that's exciting. Congratulations. That's a big move to make.
Yeah. And I want to go into like a little bit of detail. We have a little bit of time, but it's like what
Totally.
I'm doing is also tracking my time, which I couldn't never figure out before. I'm using
Oh,
Toggle,
yeah.
and I have it by the brand, by the project and season,
Okay.
and that has helped me to kind of create a bit of an average of how long things are taking me, and also
Okay.
timing myself. I need to work faster
Yeah.
because I already have my skill set and I just need to work faster, get less distracted, and be a lot more efficient with my time. And so, yeah, package pricing, that's what I'm doing. And I think I want to, in the fall is around the time where a lot of people find me, or like it's when I start the next fall season or start
Yeah.
thinking about the next fall season.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest season for me.
Yeah.
So I think from between now and I think in August, I'll be setting myself up in a really big way to
Mhm.
get some new clients and really, and I'll have like almost 50% more capacity to work.
Yeah. With
So
Colleen daycare. Yeah.
with Callie in daycare, and obviously she's gonna get sick, so I'm gonna have to have some flexibility. But
You're already anticipating
oh yeah,
the snotty
it's
noses.
happened.
I
Oh yeah,
know
it's
it
happened.
happens. It happens. I know.
So it's, it's great that I have that flexibility to do that. And so I'm really excited to see even myself in 6 months. Where am I going to be in 6 months? This has been
Totally.
the
Yeah.
biggest year so far financially for me. Um,
Amazing.
I hit,
Congratulations.
yeah, I'm so excited. I hit 5K months because I also divided my invoices. It's project based, but it's divided into months.
Yeah.
Just because it's so much easier for me to like invoice every
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
Instead of like, well, I finished the design portion, I'll invoice you for that, and then I'll
Yeah.
go into this portion.
Okay. Okay.
And with like factories having different time frames, I
Yeah.
don't know when they're gonna ship the proto sample. So I don't wanna charge for that.
Yeah.
I don't have control over that.
Yeah.
So I need to set myself up for success for me. I need to take care of
Totally.
myself. So even though if the factory takes 3 months instead of 2 months, like I have those monthly payments set up.
Yeah.
So that's how I've been able to see, okay, hey, like I'm growing this month, and that keeps
Yeah.
me motivated.
That's amazing. And
Um,
that's working half time.
yes, I'm
You're
working.
gonna, when you have like the physical capacity, because you're not, being a mom
Yeah,
20 hours a week during those working hours, you'll hit six figures next year.
I hope so.
Yes,
That's
you
the
will,
goal.
girl. You totally will. I know you
That's the
will.
goal.
Like once you are, I mean, being a mom is a lot, like being,
Yes,
without full-time care. And once you
it's
get
a
like
lot.
that physical time and that mental time back, minus a few sick days, it's going to be fine.
Oh yeah, I'm so happy. Like,
Yeah.
even in the mental state that I'm in this year versus
Yeah.
last year, I think it was really hard. I mean, being a mom is hard. And the first
Yeah.
year, I want everyone that like has been freelancing, because I've seen some people in the chat in the group where like, how do you do this as a mom? And the first year was really, really
It's
hard. Like,
hard.
I'm
Yeah.
not the kind of person, I know some people can, but I wasn't the kind of person that was able to work like in between nap time and like
Yeah.
because my kid never slept well. So, and
But
I
she's
wasn't
sleeping well now
sleeping.
because you like just put her
She's
down
good.
and okay, we're
Yeah,
good. We got over that hump.
exactly. So yeah, exactly. Like, she's getting older. It's easier.
Yeah. It does get a
But
lot easier.
yeah. So I think it's that I was exhausted. So your brain is not in the place. Like my brain was
No.
mush for like the first 6 months,
Yeah.
and that becomes very stressful.
Yeah.
So, and I thought I wasn't gonna be able to be at that full capacity that I'm going into next month.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was gonna be able to get there last year.
Yeah.
If you would have talked
Yeah.
to me like a year ago, I was like, I'm gonna be part-time until my kid is 18 years old. That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
You're just like in such a moment. You can't see
Yeah,
anything past that
you just can't. I couldn't. Like, I
till my
literally
kid's
couldn't.
18.
Yeah, like at the first time mom, it's like, I mean, this is the moment and this is gonna be forever.
Oh my God. When
So,
did you guys move to Nashville? Because
uh,
so we're recording right now. It's July 2023.
We
When did you
moved
move?
here the last week of December last year.
Okay, so like
So
6
7
months.
months.
Okay,
Yeah,
7 months.
6 months. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah.
So you were getting out of the first year of motherhood fog. You moved. Now you actually have like a proper office and like a space to have your knit books and yarn books and stuff. And
Yeah,
like
that
that
has been also
feels
life-changing.
great.
Just like
Yeah.
being able to like lock myself in here. That
Yeah.
was never an option. We had a
Weird.
one-bedroom apartment in New York, and my husband also works from home. So it was
Yeah.
like his desk on one side of the living room and my desk like on another side of the living room. And New York apartments are not big. So
Yeah. Like, how were you even doing call? Like, you couldn't do calls at the same time, probably,
Um,
right?
we couldn't.
You just
And if
scheduled.
Scotty was like napping, then she would be in the bedroom, the only one bedroom. He was gonna call, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll take the call from the bathroom
The bathroom.
because
I'll just go in this
well,
corner where all you can see is like a little white wall,
exactly.
but really I'm sitting on the
So
toilet. Yeah.
yes. So I hopefully you can't hear the echo. So
Yeah. Oh my
yeah,
God, that's amazing.
so it was rough, but
Yeah.
I'm grateful where we're at right now, and
Yeah.
it has given me a lot more like mental stability with that,
Yeah.
and getting excited for like what's next and stuff. Because I mean, to be honest, like I wasn't there last year.
Yeah.
I was just kind of barely surviving.
Yeah. I
So
mean, it's a lot, like having a kid, the pandemic, like
yes,
that alone is like whew,
yes,
a
yeah,
lot to
exactly,
take. Yeah.
exactly. And also another thing that I was struggling a lot with was the price of childcare, and still
Mm,
the price of childcare is a lot in all of the U.S., but in New York specifically, it was this kind of weird rabbit hole where I was, where it's like if I want to work, I need childcare, but I can't afford childcare right now
I
because
know.
I'm
Yeah.
not working a lot, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how much I'm gonna make next month, and it
Mm,
was this like constant just oh my god, it was really stressful, and finding a childcare that was able to do part-time was really hard to do,
mm,
and just because we couldn't afford like a full-time childcare situation, and then
yeah.
having family help you, but then we're all in the same environment, so
Mm.
we're all in like the little one-bedroom apartment trying to work, trying to have family help with
Oh,
the
with like
baby.
someone watching the baby there. Oh, that's a
Yes,
lot. Oh,
yeah, so
you're like, I'm gonna go to the coffee shop.
Yeah. So like, or like, you need to take a walk right now.
Get
And
in the stroller, pack up the Cheerios
yes,
and go.
please
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like dealing with like communication with family for those you know, leveling those expectations when you have someone from your family taking care of your child too, because it's
Yeah.
like, sometimes you can't force like, your family member to like on a schedule, the one that you the kind of schedule that you want for your kid.
Yeah.
You have to be kind of, and communicating all of that, learning that communication, and it
Yeah.
was last year was a hot
A
mess.
challenge. Yeah, you
Yeah.
mentioned that before we hit record that like you're really excited. Like you got the babysitter now, but like getting into like a more structured daycare where like these are the hours, this is what
Yes.
I'm paying for this,
Yes.
I'm committed is actually can feel a
Yes.
lot better than like the reliance on family. Like, yes, while family is like family and you're not paying, you
Yes.
can't set that same precedent of like, I need you here at 12:30 and I need you to then be
Yes.
out by
Yes.
12:45 or whatever,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't get that same control.
Exactly. So I'm excited. I'm, up leveling my capacity and
Yeah.
learning a lot. And, I'm just excited to have more of that time to even connect with other freelancers, to
Yeah,
like,
totally.
you know, one quick thing, like I was just listening to the call that you had this month,
Okay, the coaching call.
and
Yeah.
you just said like the kind of other design agencies and how to like pitch to them and like
Yeah.
connect with them. That
Yeah.
blew my mind. That
Oh,
literally
really?
blew my mind.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Like since I've listened to podcasts about fashion, some of the agencies have like, like they're kind of a lot of like startup accelerator stuff like that. And I've
Uh-huh.
been listening to these people and I'm like, oh, but they even do knitwear. So, why would I even talk to them? But that's why I need to talk to them, because their
Yeah.
clients may want knitwear and they don't
It's such a
have those.
specialty.
Exactly. So I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, why didn't I do this 3 years ago?" But
Yeah. And dear listener, we'll link to that episode in the show notes. It hasn't well, by the time you hear this, it will have published. It should be, don't quote me on this, but it should be episode 177 by the time it goes live, if nothing gets shifted in the schedule, of this strategy of working with agencies that Mari's talking about.
Yes, exactly.
So you can go listen to episode 177 and we'll link it in the notes. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was blown when she told me, she goes, freelancers never reach out to me. I was like,
I know.
What?
I'm like, oh, so you want people to reach out to you? Oh, okay.
She's trying to find people who are like really specialized in
Yeah.
their skill, which also, dear listener, specialized in your skill, key. Like that's what you said. You said something earlier. I
Yeah.
meant to call it out and I didn't, but like being niche, that's how people are finding you because you are so crazy
Yeah.
niche. If you're just like a
Yeah.
general fashion designer, like it's impossible for people to find you. But when you get really hyper specific in your services and your area and your category and all that stuff, that's where the magic
Also,
happens.
like, I want people to also know that it's actually very hard to find people. It's just hard to find people, you know, like good people, you know,
Like good
and
freelancers.
good freelancers, and
Yeah.
just like what you're looking for, it's very hard to find. And I think people don't know that.
No,
Like
they think that
all my clients say it to me.
yeah.
Like, it's so hard to find. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, can you please like do this sweatshirt for me? I was like, I don't do sweatshirts. Like, but it's just so much easier, you know? Like, I'm gonna have to find someone, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's hard to find good people. It totally is. I mean, that I can sympathize with that, both from hiring freelance fashion designers as well as hiring freelancers in general. It's hard. And I think
Yeah.
people really discount that. They're like, oh, that negative, what do you call it?
That
Evidence comes
Yeah.
in. You're like, they don't need me. They
Yeah.
have people in house. They know how to do everything. I don't know how to do anything, right? That voice. And then boom,
Exactly.
you're not doing it because that voice is so loud.
Exactly.
That's the root of all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So anyway, yeah.
Mari, this has been, I mean, I'm glad we did this call now because I thought about you like last year when we were recording. I was like, we got to get Mari. And I think we chatted and you're like, I think I'm moving to Tennessee or Nashville. And I was like, okay, we'll connect later. But it feels like this is a really great time for the call to catch up and hear all the amazing stuff you're up to. I'm so excited to get updated on the next 6 to 12 months from you as well. You better keep me in the loop.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so where can everybody find you to learn more about what you do or maybe hire you if they have some need?
Yes, please. Yeah. I'm on Instagram. I'm mmknitwear.studio, and that's my website as well. And
mmknitwear.studio.
And then it should be easy to find me there, like DM, or my email is in my website if you need to reach out as well, and on my Instagram. So yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll link to all that in the show notes. I would love to end with the question I ask everybody at the end. I think you know what it is.
Yes.
What is one thing people never ask you about being a freelancer that you wish they would?
I love this question. I've always thought about what I would answer. But about being a freelancer, I think it's just like the same with fashion, like everything that takes into it, like like all the different things that I do during the day to either get set up as a business or like my actual job. Everything that it takes into, I think if you are talking to someone at a party and they have no idea, I think they don't even know what to ask because they have no idea. So I think it's more like, what is your, I guess, day-to-day look like, or what does it take to even make one of the products that you're making? Like, what does it take to make a sweater? And that in itself is just such a huge process. So
I didn't know like the weight thing. I've never done knits or like sweater knits, right? So like I didn't know the weight thing with the yarn and like the POs and stuff. That was really, I mean, God, we could have taken this conversation a whole different direction and nerded out on that, but that wasn't really the point of our chat. But it's fascinating, right? When you hear all these little nuances, you're like, oh wait, but that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, sweaters are like, they're measured differently, they're priced differently, the material is bought in a different way. So all about it is like very different.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and experience with everyone. And congratulations on your amazing success. You're going to keep
Thank you.
Keep going. I just know it.
Thank you.